6 straight games without a single made field goal. Not one. Then Tyasha Harris checked in at Gainbridge Fieldhouse on Friday, August 14th and went 5 for 5 from three-point range, the best shooting night of her entire career. And in about 11 minutes of game time, she made Stephanie White's starting lineup look indefensible. Because when the Indiana Fever beat the Dallas Wings 98-87 that night, the story wasn't Caitlin Clark and it wasn't Paige Bueckers. It was an Indiana native who had been buried at the end of the rotation, drilling dagger after dagger while one of the Fever's actual starters watched from the sideline. And there is one number attached to that starter, a number people who chart every possession of this team have been passing around all week. That is so ugly, it explains why this franchise decision cannot wait another game. I'm reading it out loud later in this video, and I promise you it changes how you watch Indiana for the rest of the season. So let's start with the decision, because that's why you clicked. The Indiana Fever have to take Lexie Hull out of the starting lineup, and the person who replaces her should not be Sophie Cunningham. It should be Tyasha Harris. That's the call, that's the verdict, and by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why the other option quietly ruins the best thing this team has going. If you're already yelling at your screen, good, that's the point, so smash that like button and drop your starting 5 in the comments right now, because I read every single one of them. And subscribe if you want the Fever drama nobody else has the nerve to say out loud. Now, the game itself. Indiana beat Dallas 98-87 at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Their 3rd straight win and their 8th win in 10 games, which pushed them to 22-12 on the season. Caitlin Clark finished with 20 points and 10 assists, and here's the part that got lost in the noise. That was the 20th time in her career she's posted 20 points and 10 assists in the same game, which is the most in league history. She is rewriting the record book in real time, and it barely made a headline, because the Fever news cycle has been swallowed whole by chaos. Kelsey Mitchell added 23 points, extending her own league single-season record to 18 consecutive games with 20 or more, the second longest streak in the history of the sport behind A'ja Wilson's 20. Aliyah Boston grabbed 12 rebounds. Bueckers went for 29, and it still didn't matter. Indiana opened the 4th quarter on a 15-2 run, capped by a Clark 3 that flipped a 3-point deficit into a 10-point lead. But that wasn't the whole story, because Fever fans nearly had a heart attack in the first half. With under a minute left before the break, Clark's left foot clipped the back of Wings forward Aliyah Clark's heel, and Caitlin limped straight off toward the tunnel under her own power. If you watched that live, you know the sound the building made. After 2 seasons of soft tissue nightmares, everyone in Indiana holds their breath now. The good news, and it's genuinely great news, is that she came back out for the second half and immediately set the offense on fire. That's the version of Caitlin Clark this league was starving for. But it's also a reminder of the stakes here, because the Fever cannot afford to waste possessions carrying dead weight in the starting 5, while their franchise player is putting her body through that. Which brings us to the uncomfortable part. Lexie Hull returned to the Fever starting lineup back on May 17th against Seattle, and White explicitly chose her over Sophie Cunningham for that spot after Hull worked her way back from a nagging hamstring issue that had cost her the season opener. Fine. Defensible in May. Except the production never showed up. Hull has been averaging around 5 points a game this season on roughly 43% shooting from the field and 35% from 3 with about 3 rebounds. Over one recent 5-game stretch, she averaged 3.6 points and 2.4 rebounds. In the overtime loss to Las Vegas earlier this month, she played 17 minutes and finished with 1 point, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, and 3 turnovers. 1 point. In 17 minutes. As a starter. On a team with title expectations. And here's what almost nobody noticed, the number I promised you. Across 33 games this season, Lexie Hull has finished with more fouls than points, or the exact same number of fouls as points, in 13 of them. 13 out of 33. That is nearly 40% of her season where her whistle count matched or beat her scoring. She hasn't cracked 10 points in a game since the 10th of July. And I want to be very clear about something, because I like Lexie Hull, and I'm not interested in dogpiling on a player who works as hard as she does. She dives on the floor, she takes charges. She had a genuinely lovely moment on August 11th against the Liberty, when she grabbed the 500th rebound of her career, in game number 167. And the irony is almost too perfect, because that rebound came off a missed Caitlin Clark 11-footer. Lexie Hull as a high-energy hustle piece off the bench is a net positive for any team in this league. I'd take her on my bench in a heartbeat. But that's exactly the problem, and it's a money problem as much as a basketball one. Hull re-signed with Indiana on a multi-year deal in April, reported to be one of the richer wing contracts on this roster under the new collective bargaining agreement, with figures around $800,000 a year floating around. $800,000 does not buy you a hustle specialist. $800,000 buys you a starter, and the expectation changes with the paycheck, whether that's fair or not. 2 or 3 seasons ago, a wing producing like this would have been quietly benched in about 6 games. She's still starting in the middle of a playoff race. That's not Lexie's fault. That's a coaching decision, and coaching decisions have consequences. What happened next is where this gets spicy, though. Because the obvious answer, the one every fan account has been screaming since May, is to slide Sophie Cunningham into that starting spot. And I'm telling you right now that would be a mistake. And it has nothing to do with Sophie's ability. Sophie Cunningham has been outstanding in 2026. She's averaging around 9 points a game off the bench while shooting about 45% from three-point range, which is second in the entire league. Second, she's landed squarely in the 6th Player of the Year conversation, and The Ringer put her second in its mid-season rankings for that award, behind only Golden State's Janelle Salayun. She is the single most valuable bench weapon Indiana has, an instant scoring punch and an enforcer who changes the temperature of a game the moment she walks on the floor. You do not solve a starting lineup problem by deleting your best bench advantage. Move Sophie into the starting 5 and you fix one seam while ripping open another, because suddenly your second unit has no shot maker and no attitude. Tyasha Harris solves the first problem without creating the second. She's a first-year Fever guard, an Indiana native who came over from Dallas back in April, and she is a legitimate spacer. Look at how those 5 threes came against the Wings. A catch and shoot to tie the game in the 4th, a step back off the dribble that had her feeling it before the ball even landed, and then 2 more to stretch a close game into a comfortable one. Those weren't garbage looks. Those were shots a starting lineup desperately needs when Clark and Mitchell are drawing every defender in the building. But that's not even the wild part. The reason this decision has become urgent instead of interesting is everything else happening around this franchise, and it has put Stephanie White's name on a list nobody wants to be on. Rewind to August 8th against the Chicago Sky, a game Indiana won 90-86. DiJonai Carrington knocked Sophie Cunningham down while she was elevating for a layup, and the referees hit her with a flagrant 2 and threw her out of the game. Then White stepped to the podium afterward and said Carrington was going to play her butt off, that nobody's walking in for free layups, and that she didn't think it was intentional. The internet detonated. Fans accused her of defending a rival player over her own guard. Indiana's Lieutenant Governor, Micah Beckwith, publicly called for White to be fired. Read that again. A sitting state official calling for a basketball coach's job over a foul. By the time the Fever hosted New York on August 11th, White was booed by her own home crowd during pregame introductions. She used her entire pregame media session on one long, fiery statement, said she'd watched the replay and now considered the foul egregious, tore into politicians and pundits who claimed she doesn't have her players' backs, said people presume to know who she is and have no idea, and declared that the hate, the fear-mongering, and the divisiveness trying to hijack the league would not win. She dropped an expletive or two, told her detractors exactly where they could go, and walked out. Fever president Kelly Krauskopf then had to release a public statement backing her, praising her for keeping the team focused and united under the brightest spotlight in the league. When your team president has to put out a paper statement defending your employment in mid-August, you are coaching for your career. And credit where it's due, the locker room closed ranks. Sophie Cunningham, the player everyone assumed was owed an apology, went out and defended her coach without being asked twice. She said their locker room is tight, that they have each other's backs, that coach loves them, and that she genuinely doesn't care about the outside noise anymore because she's trying to keep the main thing the main thing. That is captain energy from a player coming off a torn MCL last season, and it's exactly why you don't gamble with her role. Indiana beat the Liberty 106-92 that night, with Sophie chipping in 12 off the bench, because of course she did. So here's where the consequence lands. White has survived the Carrington firestorm. She's survived the booze. She's survived a politician demanding her firing. What she will not survive is losing a playoff series with a starting lineup that everyone in the building can see isn't her best 5. That is the thing that actually gets coaches fired in this league. not a bad quote, but a stubborn rotation in October. And the schedule is not doing her any favors, because Indiana sits at 22-12, holding roughly a half-game lead over the Atlanta Dream for the 4th seed. They're on the road in Atlanta as this goes out, and they see Dallas one more time in Texas this week. There is no soft landing left on this calendar. The 3-guard look is the answer, and the objection to it is weaker than people think. Yes, going small costs you size. But the idea that Lexie Hull is some elite defensive rebounding anchor doesn't survive contact with the numbers. And Indiana's rebounding actually improves when rookie Michaela Timpson, the one everyone calls KK, is on the floor. She's already earned Kelsey Mitchell publicly calling her one of the best rookies she's ever come across and the ultimate pro. So use her. Ride the size where you get it. Then unleash Clark, Mitchell, and Harris together against teams you can outshoot. You don't run it against Minnesota. You probably don't run it against Atlanta with their length at the 3. You absolutely run it against Golden State, against Vegas, against New York. Matchup-specific lineups are not a radical concept. They're literally the job. My honest read? Hull comes off the bench as the energy piece she's genuinely great at. Harris starts and stretches the floor for the 2 MVP-level guards. Sophie Stays the 6th woman flamethrower who wins Indiana a playoff game by herself, and White gets to keep the job that a whole state has been arguing about for a week. Do nothing, keep trotting out the same 5, and the postseason exit interview becomes a firing. That's the choice. That's the whole video. So tell me I'm wrong. Genuinely, tell me in the comments, because half of you are going to say Sophie has to start, and I want to see that argument. Hit like if you think Tyasha Harris earned that spot on Friday night, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens the second Stephanie White finally announces her new starting 5. Because when that lineup card drops, this fanbase is going to lose its mind.